Hey everybody, I'm Jason, and
Althea.
we're part of A&J's Kitchen, and this is our first video. We're primarily a cooking channel, right?
Yes, we are.
Now we could just send you off on your merry way and have you cook whatever you want and buy whatever you want, but we feel that would really be doing you guys a disservice, don't you think?
I agree.
And why would that be?
Well, you got to know what's out there, what kind of foods are good, and not even just what foods are good, but how to cook them would be helpful.
And we're not professionals. We're not. I want to make one thing abundantly clear: we're not hippies. We're not new age freaks, as people have been said to us in the past. Um, so, with that said, just check with your doctor if you have any food interactions or anything before you just go and do whatever you want. This is just general information, and we just want to be healthier people, and we want to put this information out there. I'm just reading from a list. There's a lot of information to cover, so please bear with us for the next 20 minutes or so, 10, 20 minutes or so. We've had a lot of good experience with food and a lot of bad experience with food, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, we've over time we've discovered that we've had food allergies, sensitivities, and then over time your palate changes. What you liked when you were a kid, you may not like as an adult.
And that's really what it boils down to. And sometimes you might even have to cook meals for yourself because the rest of your family doesn't want to eat it. They want to eat junk food. And that's also a support system would be great in this. But if you don't have one, don't feel bad that you have to cook your own food. I mean, the choice is yours, and nobody has a right to make you feel bad because you want to be healthy, right?
Exactly.
So, how about we start with our mission statement, Althea?
So we are, as we mentioned, this is J and this is A. We are just, we want to educate people about healthier food. We want to tell the world that you can make better food choices. And there's a lot of information out there that might seem like a lot of doom and gloom, and you might kind of wonder, well, I shouldn't eat this, I shouldn't eat that. But we're here to tell you that yes, there is food out there that you can eat. And we want to teach you how to shop for food that so the grocery store isn't a daunting place to be. And the best part is, and this is my personal favorite part, is we're going to show you in this channel how to actually cook. So you'll get to join us in our own kitchen and you'll see how we prepare food that is tasty, delicious, and healthy.
And without breaking the bank.
Indeed, without breaking the bank.
And this first video will show you more about how to be aware of what we call GMO food. There's a lot of it out there. It's scary. They've done tests on rats with them, and they've actually found that it has broken down their cells, even killed them eventually. And a lot of people use rats because their bodies are similar to ours. And it scared the heck out of us in the beginning, but we've moved past it and we found great tasty alternatives. And now we'd like to share our personal experience with the food. Althea, well, I'd like you to take over. You have a lot of issues here.
I do have a lot of issues. About maybe 3 to 4 years ago, I couldn't keep anything down. It was coming out of all ends. I was losing my hair. I I had acne, headaches, bloating. It was terrible. Anything that I ate always came up with some kind of repercussion. So I went to the doctor, and the doctor said, "Oh, just don't worry about it. It'll probably pass."
Didn't you say to take Imodium?
Yeah, that was after everything else. So I then went to see a specialist to check my colon. Everything was fine. They said it was pristine. The barium I had to drink wasn't fun. Then I went back to my doctor and said, okay, well, problem's still here. If my colon is fine, then they said he didn't know, and I told me to take Imodium, and I told him I couldn't because I'm actually allergic to lactose. So I went to see a naturopath, and that's when everything changed for me. The naturopath put me on an elimination diet, and after 6 weeks, I lost 7 pounds. Jason here lost 10 pounds as he did it with me. And slowly, we reintroduced common allergens back into my diet: gluten, dairy, cow's dairy, eggs. And it turns out I had reactions to all three. So I learned in that instance, even if something is labeled gluten free, always check the label to see if it has eggs in it. When we got married, our menu was actually gluten, dairy, and egg free, and
Nobody noticed the difference.
no one was any the wiser until maybe 6 months later when somebody eventually found out and was completely floored that, nothing tasted like cardboard.
That's a
Um,
common stereotype too, that things taste like rubber and they have no flavor.
so after eliminating all those foods, I noticed an immediate difference. My hair stopped falling out, my acne went away, the headaches went away, the bloating, and all the other fun stuff, all of that changed. We also did a juice diet, or sorry, a juice cleanse for 5 days and saw lots of results there. So now I know to stay away from these common allergens: gluten, cow's dairy,
Wheat,
eggs, wheat, bananas.
bananas, even for me as well.
And it made me realize that my diet is a lot more than what we've been taught it is. I would be the person to have a bagel at breakfast, a sandwich for lunch, and, spaghetti carbonara for dinner that's full of cheese and milk. So I had a diet that was full of dairy and full of gluten. And now I still have a very varied diet, as you will see in our coming videos. And you'll also see that it is possible to have an allergen-free diet and still have tasty and delicious food.
And to top what very well said, Althea. And to top it off, we just found out Althea has some issues with blood sugar, runs in the family. So we have to be even more careful. And we're like, what the hell do we eat? And we'll talk about that in a few moments.
So what we'll do throughout our series of videos is you're actually going to see our journey. We are two average people, and we want to share with you what it is that we go through on a daily basis. I have diabetes, I have type 2 diabetes, and I'm going to make sure that I am at my best health. I want to get off the medication that I'm on, and I want to do this through food. So you will actually share in our journey towards health.
And that's amazing. I'm glad we can do this together. Um, I'm glad we can do this together and share this with you. And we're not here to call out brands or companies or names of stores. None of that. We're not here. I know a lot of these companies employ people, and that's great. But we've learned that some of these companies who make GMO food won't put their own food in their cafeterias. So it kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So that's what we're here to help you be aware of. And I'd like to share a bit about my experience. Well, Althea already mentioned that I did the elimination diet with her. I lost 10 pounds in like several weeks. I felt a lot better. I wasn't as tired. My skin was looking better. I had some acne on my back. I thought it was hormonal, whatever. A lot of guys get that, especially when they work out. And things started to get a lot better. But I tried something. We thought, no, what we will be sharing with you is also vegetarian and vegan food, because we do enjoy it, but we're not complete vegetarians or complete vegans. We support. I want to make one thing abundantly clear. We support both vegetarianism and veganism. We have nothing against it, but I do think people have to be aware of their own body types, and I think there can be a hidden side to these type of lifestyles, because for about a year and a half, up until about 2 months ago, I was about 90% vegetarian. I was eating black beans, and the best thing, you want to basically buy your black beans and legumes, raw. You want to cook them, soak them overnight in water and cook them. I was eating black beans. They're high in protein, iron, and fiber. Lentils, same thing, protein, iron, and fiber. Other vitamins, chickpeas, um, and I noticed after about 6 months or so, 6 to 8 months, and I was taking a high-end vegan multivitamin that had a lot of nutrients as well, 3 times a week, because the nutrient value was so high. If you took it every day, you'd overdose. And even with that, I didn't feel right. Um, my wife noticed that I looked pale a lot. I thought it's because I was on antidepressants. And which I'm off now, by the way. I'm very thankful for that. I feel much better. Um, I felt very tired a lot. I couldn't believe this. I actually gained anywhere from 18 to 25 pounds, give or take, on some days. I was amazed. I thought, people were going on how wonderful this lifestyle is for your health and so on. And in the long run, I'm like, how did I gain weight? People said that the weight gain was just your body balancing itself out. Um, and a lot of the weight gain was plant matter buildup. But for some reason, weeks would go by and I never seemed to balance out. So I wanted to do an experiment. I started reluctantly eating meat again. Like I said, I thought I was trying to do the right thing. I know a lot of animals aren't treated well, and that's something we don't support.
Mm-hmm.
So within a week, I noticed my anxiety started going away. I noticed I had more energy. I noticed that, Thea noticed that my skin was starting to look healthier again, the color of it. My hair and skin felt better. I also noticed a lot of bloating went away. And I also noticed that a lot of muscle fullness came back, and I started losing weight. I started losing the weight that I gained. And I noticed now it's been 2 months and a lot of my strength has come back. So this is just to make you aware that just because someone else tells you to do something, that doesn't mean that it's right for your body. Humans were originally carnivores. I mean, why do you think we have canine teeth here to rip through meat, right? And think about this. Basically we try and do the paleo diet, animal protein, berries, plants, grains. I mean, our caveman ancestors, if they didn't eat for 3 days and they saw a woolly mammoth come running along, he wouldn't hesitate to say, maybe I shouldn't kill this animal. He's going to shove a spear through that and enjoy it for his family. And that's what I'm going to say about my personal experiences. Well, I will say if being a vegetarian and a complete vegan work for you, you know, that's great for you, and I'm glad. So how about we move on to the next topic, Althea? Now, what we want to do is there's a lot of them, and you might be frustrated, and you might be like, "What do I eat?" We'll get into that later. We want to talk about the foods to avoid. So how about you start here, Althea, at the very top?
So we suggest, and this is something that we've done for ourselves, avoid carbonated drinks, soft drinks, energy drinks, sports drinks. We're talking people a lot of sugar, high levels of anything that's highly caffeinated. And there are instances where herbal teas, for example, do contain a small amount of caffeine. So in that case, then yes. Um, if it does contain naturally occurring caffeine, that's one thing, but we're talking about things that purposely have caffeine added to them. Canned foods, for example, in the lining of some cans, they do contain BPA. Caffeine, just to get back to caffeine, it can affect your adrenal levels and it can affect cortisol levels in the body. So in canned foods, there's preservative. The combination of metals and preservatives could actually seep into the food, which could result in a low nutritional value, which has been linked to cancer and diseases. So again, we will say in here, we want to add a disclaimer: we are not medical professionals. If you have an issue with your health, please seek out medical assistance immediately. We are simply here just talking about the things that have worked for us.
Well said. And one thing we want to list to avoid that we've learned, processed and highly refined foods and drinks.
Mm-hmm.
That includes fast foods. A lot of them contain GMOs and pesticides. Junk foods like chips, cheap chocolate, candy bars, frozen treats, they all contain GMOs and a high level of chemicals. White table salt is not really good for you because I think that increases cholesterol and you can OD. Your sodium intake, daily sodium intake can go through the roof. We'll get into what you can do for substitution after. White bread. Now, with all these rules, there's always going to be an exception to the rules. might work for one person might not work for somebody else. And again, that's why we recommend seeing a doctor or a food specialist if you're concerned about any of these things that we're talking about. And we've actually been hearing that a lot of doctors will only prescribe GMO-free diets. So obviously the medical community is waking up around the world, which is nice to see. White bread is usually GMO, genetically modified, highly refined, little to no nutritional value, which is the worst. All the general cereals that we know to be healthy that you see advertised. Basically, why? Because by the time, please forgive me, I'm reading from a sheet here. Like I said, there's a lot of information. By the time they are manufactured, almost all the nutritional value in the grains are destroyed. They're highly refined and cheap, genetically modified. And how about you continue here? There's one just below that one about
Yep. So
water.
if you're looking for water, try to avoid bottled water. Bottled water actually has no regulations to it. You can fill a bottle with just about anything you want, put put a label on it, and sell it. Bottled water tends not to be filtered. If you do are fortunate enough to live on a well, on a system where there is a well, chances are that your water is likely safe.
You do have to be careful. There's a farm nearby because we've heard stories of pesticides seeping into the well water. I just wanted to.
Yep. So be careful of bottled water.
What we use.
We actually drink reverse osmosis water. We're fortunate enough to live in a town where we have an amazing supply of reverse osmosis water. And this water is filtered several times to remove all toxins and impurities from the water so that what's left is actual pure water as it was intended to be. So just hydrogen and oxygen molecules, and that way you actually get a fresher, pure tasting water, which we do drink and we also use in cooking. So just to keep going, a lot of the smaller food companies out there. So there's been a growing instance of smaller food companies who have started kind of at a grassroots level, and because they've been so popular, a lot of larger food companies, your big agri companies, have been purchasing these smaller companies. So the brands that you would find in your local health food store are likely owned by some bigger conglomerates. So, of course, for legal reasons, we can't get into that, but it's just something that if you look it up or if you do a Google search on that, you'll actually see which brands that we're referring to.
You can find all this online. So, and like I said, we're not here to call out companies or criticize or insult companies. You got to do your own research, guys.
So, just to keep in mind as well, we're listing things that have worked well for us, and we hope that this information works well for you. So, certain fruits and vegetables in stores do have pesticides. A good rule of thumb is to buy local. If you live in a town or city with a farmer's market, you can go to your local farmer's market and speak to the farmer, speak to the vendor, and ask them, how do you grow your food? Do you use pesticides? How do you fertilize your crops? It's important that when you develop that relationship with the person that grows your food, and also buy in season. When you buy in season, you're buying food at the peak of its harvest. It hasn't been in storage for very long. And also, food that's in season tends to be at a lower price. So if you eat, unfortunately, here where we live in an area where there is an abundance of growth, abundance of crops, and eating in season has proven to be very successful for us.
I agree. One thing that I've found that we need to avoid are eggs, dairy, wheat, and gluten. Gluten's in a lot of wheat, especially in most breads. It's basically been the way that they've been made over here and processed over here. Because when we're in other countries, say Cuba, for example, we could eat all these things and not have any reaction at all. And then when we came back to North America, we'd try a sandwich, and all the reactions came back. And the reason I say eggs, for me, for both of us, well, my beautiful wife here would break out in hives eating eggs. Both of us would get very bloated. We even tried farm-raised eggs, which we'll get into in a few moments. That could work for some of you, I'm sure. And if it does, that's great. I've tried them, but they just don't work for me. My stomach really stretches and expands, and I don't like the way I feel on them.
And
Um,
just as a side note, they're chicken fetuses. That's kind of gross.
yeah, I would say so. Um, and cheese. Um, a lot of cheese is processed, especially those orange cheese slices that we used to love on grilled cheeses as kids.
Hmm.
Um, some of you might not be able to handle cheese at all, but part of our elimination diet, actually able to tolerate buffalo and goat cheese, and that works for us. But we know some people that they can't even do that. So don't feel bad. And just a rule of thumb with any type of food, we want to know just because we're conditioned to eat certain things and buy certain things, if it makes you feel bad, why would you eat it, right? White pasta, I found they're empty calories. Maybe it might be good if you're running a track meet the next day or playing in a soccer match or something. That's fine. And some people with blood sugar issues, some people don't even realize they have blood sugar issues. It can actually spike your blood sugar levels and they go straight to the pancreas. And again, we're not medical professionals, but we've done our research and spoken to our doctors and find out what these foods do. And I suggest you do the same if you have concerns. Even whole wheat pasta in some people, usually they're cheaply made, and a lot of them there's soy protein in it. And soy protein, soybean oil, they're usually cheaply made and highly refined, and GMO, of course. And that's not good for the long run. And my wife can share a bit about soy protein.
So soy protein, soy is predominantly GMO. It's just, if you do encounter or do enjoy soy, make sure that you look for a symbol on the label that indicates that the soy indeed is non-GMO. But soy, for the most part, is genetically modified, and we or don't consume soy protein for the most part. Soy, on a whole, has elements that do mimic estrogen. So it's up to you. We have decided not to consume it, so it's your choice if you wish to consume these foods.
So, guys, I recommend it, especially if you want to keep that masculine thing going on. Just making a joke. And what else? Well, this is just a bit off topic from food, and again, we're not calling out anybody in the medical community or wherever. We just found what affected us. How about you can share this one?
We be careful of certain vaccines. Certain vaccines contain eggs. So if you are like me and have an egg allergy, always consult your doctor first before you receive a vaccine. If it has been made with an egg product, you could have a reaction to it. So that is just a heads up for you. It's also good to avoid fluoride. We live in a region where there is no fluoride in the drinking water, and we don't use we actually make our own toothpaste. And using fluoride, um, fish dye, it's not something that has been proven to be good for humans. We are told that it prevents cavities, but if you brush your teeth on a regular basis, avoid refined sugars, and overall take care of yourself, you can also avoid cavities that way.
So we'll be back with part two of this video because it's getting a little bit longer than we thought. So we'll be back in a few moments, all right?